Welcome to Trial of the Hollywood Sex Therapist Killer, the harrowing and tragic story of Dr. Amie Harwick, who met a tragic end when she was allegedly thrown off her third-floor balcony by her stalker and ex-boyfriend, Gareth Pursehouse. Found clinging to life, but later succumbing to her injuries, Amie's death has raised many questions, with answers to be revealed in court. Join us as we dive deep into the ongoing trial of Gareth Pursehouse, the man accused of this heinous act, and as we seek justice for Amie.
Are trained to carefully note anything touched, right?
Are they trained that way?
I can't say how each officer is trained.
Okay. So you don't have the knowledge to answer that.
Correct.
All right.
And it's best practice, and in the manual itself, that it's important to note anything that was touched, right?
Is it important to note anything that was touched? Is that your question? I want to make sure I understand.
That it's best practice, that is, in terms of investigating a potential homicide, that it's best practice to carefully note anything touched.
Touched by the officers? Touched by whom?
Touched by the officers.
I would agree that that would be best practice.
That the senior officer of the first unit that arrives on the scene shall be responsible for ensuring that the crime scene procedures have been implemented, right?
Yes.
In this case, that was Sergeant Denis, right? Until the detectives got involved.
No, I don't believe that's correct.
That extreme care must be exercised in preserving the scene and any evidence present.
Yes.
That failure to properly protect the scene may also cause irreparable damage to the case.
I'm going to object this argumentative.
Possibly.
One of the most significant tasks for a homicide detective is to locate and preserve physical evidence.
Yes, I would agree.
And that's one reason why you had so many things photographed, right?
Yes.
You wanted to make a record of the state of those different pieces of physical evidence.
Yes. My take on the crime scenes is we have one shot at the crime scene. We can always go back and re-interview witnesses. We can always rerun lab tests or request different lab tests. But we only have the crime scene for a finite amount of time, and once we break down the crime scene, then we can no longer say what's going on, and what may be relevant and what may not be.
Right, and I think you testified on direct that part of your rationale was, be over-inclusive, take more photographs than you think might be necessary so that you have everything captured, right?
That's my personal thing, is I try to...
So your answer is yes?
Yes.
All right.
And so if things were tainted or disturbed before those photographs, then that would be relevant and important to you.
Yes.
Nothing further.
All right. You going to ask questions?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a break. Let's take a 15-minute break, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for reporting what occurred. It was... so number one, are you number one? Number one. Thank you. You did the right thing. So we put it on the record and everything else. Thank you very much. All right. We are prepared to go forward. You were going to redirect?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
I've been told I only have a few minutes to get you to Tennessee. So. These officers that first arrive at the scene, these young officers, have they all studied the homicide manual? To your knowledge, are these officers trained to study the homicide manual when they first get
to your knowledge? Okay, so I'll allow it that way.
to LAPD?
To my knowledge, probably not.
And so what's more important for an officer when he arrives at a scene where you don't know if the suspect is still inside? Is it to make sure that the place is safe, or to start blocking anyone from walking into that location?
Objection in this case to the testimony.
The most important thing the officers have is preservation of human life. After that, then the next thing is there a suspect that's still at the scene for apprehension purposes, and then secure and lock down the scene.
Now, you were asked about the information on defendant's DMV photo. When he was arrested, you got to be right in front of the defendant that day of February 15, 2020, correct?
Yes, I was there. I eventually arrived at the scene, and Mr. Pursehouse was still at scene of
Right.
the arrest.
And you also got to see the ring videos to see what that person that was in the ring videos appeared like, what his size appeared to be.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to show you part of the ring video. And this is ring video designated, let's see the title of it. It's the one at time 2053:46.
Objection beyond the scope.
Overruled. I think the identity was asked about in the DMV, and I take it.
You know, it's taken a minute, so. Yeah.
I just unplugged myself.
What?
Oh, here we go. All right, looking here, does this appear to be the individual at the ring camera? For this is the ring cam. This is People's Exhibit number 8 at time 2053, and the time is 5 seconds into the video. Do you see the person there?
I do?
Does the person appear to be wearing gloves?
Yes.
And do you see around the shorts, do you see like a white string or rope around the outside of the shorts?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled. Do you see what? Do you see a marking of some sort?
Beyond the scope.
Overruled.
You can answer that.
Yes, I see what appears to be a rope or string.
On the outside of the shorts.
Not foundation.
Well, he said what appears to be. He didn't say it was.
Does it appear to be that?
Yes.
And that's on the outside of the shorts.
Outside, yes.
And now, there was collection of evidence at defendant's home. I'm looking here at People's Exhibit number 76. Are these some of the shorts that were collected?
Yes.
Objection outside the scope.
And looking at photograph B, see that the shorts with the white line on the side?
Yes, I do.
And did these shorts have a black drawstring on the inside?
Yes.
And when you met with the defendant on February 15, did he appear to you to be 6'4"?
Objection speculation.
Overruled. He said appeared. He didn't say conclusively.
Yes.
Did he appear to be around 230 pounds?
Yes.
Were you the one that obtained the Nest camera videos?
No.
That was Lamberti.
Yes.
And you have different detectives obtaining different evidence, correct?
Correct.
Counsel kept asking you about preservation letters. Didn't Lamberti send out the search warrant for those Nest cameras the very next day?
Yes.
And at the preliminary hearing, defense counsel is the one that asked you, what do you know about the Nest camera videos, correct?
Yes.
Prior to her asking you that at the preliminary hearing in 2021, had you studied carefully what had occurred with those Nest camera videos?
No.
So you were just answering her questions based on what she asked you at that moment.
Yes.
And didn't you indicate, and I'm looking at page 114 of the preliminary hearing transcript, counsel ready?
Yes.
When Ms. Bernstein asked you, and they included an attachment, is that correct? And your answer, I'm not aware of attachments.
Correct.
So you were answering those questions at the preliminary hearing to the best of your ability of what someone else did.
Yes.
On February 16th, 2020, is that the first time Robert Koshland was interviewed?
I believe so, yes.
And was that initial interview with him, was that recorded?
Yes.
And then after that, was Sarah Rollins interviewed?
Yes.
And is it that interview that you allowed Robert Koshland to stay with her?
Yes.
Why did you allow that to happen?
As I said, she was a little hesitant, nervous, scared. She felt better to have somebody that she had known with her at the time.
Counsel showed you some notes regarding your initial conversation with Aspen Jameson on October 19th, 2021, and whether that was a full interview or whether that was just a logistical phone call. In your notes for that, do you just document the following? XBiz red carpet, January 2020, bullet point, intro to Harwick, correct?
Yes.
saw and heard mail.
Yes.
Why are you here?
Yes.
Not supportive.
Yes.
Liar, two-faced.
Yes.
Do you know who she was referring to when she was telling you about a liar, two-faced?
I don't recall.
Got heated, walk away.
Yes.
So were you trying to conduct a full interview when you called her the first time?
No.
Why not?
Like I said, this telephone call was just to introduce myself, find out if she is in fact the person that was on the red carpet when this event occurred, and then once I was satisfied that yes, she is the person, she has some relevant information, then I wanted to set up a date and time and a location where we could sit down and have a video recorded interview.
And did you interview her on October 28th, 2021?
Yes.
And did you record that interview?
Yes. In fact, I had to check out recording equipment to take with us to Henderson to record it.
So you went out of your way to make sure this was recorded, her first interview with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, have you told, well, you were present for the preliminary hearing, correct?
I was.
And at the preliminary hearing, Hernando Chavez testified that he heard the defendant say, you ruined my fucking life, bitch, something to that effect.
Objection to testimony.
Something to that effect. Is that incorrect?
I believe that is correct, yes.
And did you tell Hernando Chavez he should say that
No.
at the preliminary hearing?
No, I did not.
Did you
Absolutely.
tell him to come into court in this trial and say that he personally heard, you ruined my life, you fucking bitch?
No, I didn't. Absolutely did not.
And you recorded his first interview, correct?
Yes.
This is People's Exhibit number 11A. Is this looking at page 8 of the transcript for Hernando Chavez's interview on February 18, 2020? The recording, that's the best of what happened during the interview, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And just looking here, but from what they both told me, the performer and Amie, he was saying, you ruined my life. He called her a bitch. He was escalated. I mean, it wasn't like a voice like me. It's the high he was yelling, basically. And enough to where the performers were calling me repeatedly and obviously ran over to me. So, yeah, he was just and saying things like, you ruined my life. You're such a hypocrite. Correct?
Correct.
And you could have whatever interpretation you want of what he said to you, correct?
Yes.
But it's Hernando Chavez who will say what he heard or not.
Yes.
Objection leading.
Yes. It was what he said. Nobody can answer better than himself for his words.
And counsel asked you about Michael Herman and this LA Times article that came out on February 2020. Do you know where was Michael when he first left that voicemail message for you on February 2020?
I do.
Where was he?
He was in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Objection calls for speculation.
Okay, well, how do you know that, sir?
He told me.
Objection hearsay.
Sustained.
Well,
Motion to strike.
where
Stricken.
when you talked to him on February 2020, he told you many things in that voicemail and also later in that interview.
Yes.
Correct.
Hearsay.
Well, he said he told you things, so go ahead.
Well, defense counsel asked you about what he told you during the voicemail and during your interview, correct?
Correct.
So in those interviews, did he indicate at any point where he was when he
Objection
talked to you?
hearsay.
I'm going to sustain. So that'll remain.
Without getting into his statement, you knew where Michael Herman was when he called you.
Objection hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
And in the voicemail that he left for you on February 2020, does he say, And I'm just going to say, hi, detective.
Objection hearsay. This is the same.
I don't know where he's going with this. I don't know.
Counsel asked about the voicemail.
Okay.
And he also asked about his Michael Herman's image, so I'm rehabilitating the witness.
All right. Let's hear what I don't know what he's going to read, counsel. No, let me hear what he's going to read.
Was this his statement? This is Mike Herman. I remember something yesterday that I wanted to tell you. I don't think it's going to be any new information or anything to help. But after seeing the door and stuff just yesterday, it occurred to me that I remember while I was sleeping, being woken up by what sounded like a plate dropping and then somebody walking around up the stairs. Did he say that in his voicemail?
Yes.
So he's saying to you that after seeing the door and stuff at the house, that now he's decided to call them.
Objection hearsay.
You can answer that.
Yes.
He didn't say that he read some LA Times article, did he?
No.
Do you have any information that he ever read that LA Times article?
Objection. Cause for speculation. Foundation.
I'm asking if he has any information.
Any information, I'll allow it as such.
Yes.
Yes, what?
I have information.
No, I don't know if you understood me correctly. Do you know whether Michael had access or Michael actually read that LA Times article that the defendant's
Objection.
counsel
Cause
was
for
referring to?
speculation. Foundation.
He doesn't know. I take it you don't know that, do you, sir? You don't know if he read an LA Times article, do you, Mr. Herman?
I do know what he told me, yes.
Okay.
Objection. This is hearsay.
Sustained.
Then you interviewed him after that, correct?
Yes.
And looking at on the interview for February 2020, page 2, line 10. Where did you ask right away in the interview? Well, why do you think she went to the ground to the floor? Answer: I think
hearsay.
Rude.
I think because when I yelled up her name, Detective, I think he put her to the ground as quickly as he could and started choking her. Detective, okay. Herman, I could hear choking. Is that what he said?
Yes.
And counsel asked you about a closeout report. And what is the closeout report? A report that's 8 pages?
In this particular case, yes.
Right. And was this closeout report authored on February 17, 2020, 2 days after Miss Dr. Amie Harwick's death?
Yes.
So does this mean the case is closed with this report?
No, not at all.
So tell the jury, what does an LAPD closeout report really mean?
So the title "Closeout" is on the front page of the report. Basically, it is as soon as certain criteria are met, a suspect has been identified, a suspect is arrested, the district attorney has filed charges, then that case is progressed to a point where we close it out as far as statistical information that has to be reported up the chain of command and to the FBI that keeps national crime statistics. It doesn't mean the investigation is over and closed and finished and we can all go home.
And as a witness, let's say a witness all of a sudden remembers something new that they didn't tell you at first. Do you allow them to make that statement?
Yes.
When you first interviewed Michael Herman in those video clips that were shown, was he told to remain at the crime scene during that whole time?
Objection. Relevance outside the scope.
Sustained. Counsel, let's move on.
What was Michael Herman's demeanor during your interviews at the crime scene with him? How would you describe his demeanor?
Objection. Outside the scope.
Ooh.
I would say he was highly excited.
Objection. Speculation.
And what are you basing that on?
Just his speech, his body mannerisms, the fidgeting of the hands and feet. He couldn't really stay still.
All right.
Counsel kept asking questions about this preservation letter. Does the fact that you may send a preservation letter to a company, does that mean that company is going to do whatever you want them to do?
Objection, speculation, allegation.
Well, what's your...
Well, I'm going to sustain it. He doesn't know what they're going to do with it.
And you recorded your interviews with Michael Herman, correct? From February 15
Yes.
and February 2020?
Yes.
And lastly, during that initial interview with Michael Herman at the crime scene when it's being recorded by a body-worn video, looking at page 30, lines 26, lines 27, is he asked, well, didn't you mentioned that you heard like, and he answers, oh, well, yeah, the shuffling. Did he talk about that he heard shuffling?
Yes.
And did he also say that he had yelled out, hey, motherfucker?
Yes.
Objection, Vegas' time when that statement was made.
During the... That's during your February 15, 2020 interview, correct?
Yes.
Same.
At the police station. I'm going to correct it right now.
Are you saying when in time he made that statement
There were
in the building?
I'm going to clarify.
Okay, let's go ahead.
The statement that I just read, that was done on February 15, 2020, back at the police station.
Yes.
Just one moment. Now, talking about the walkthrough, all right, walk through page 7. Was this his statement, line 14? And I yell out, hey, motherfucker, because I feel like it sounds like a struggle. Like it just sounds, I hear a lot of like stomping around and I hear screaming. Was that his statement during the walkthrough while he's still at the crime scene?
Yes.
Looking at page 12 of the same transcript, line 2, I just say, hey, motherfucker, and then I'm running the back door like I was just hoping that, well, he's like, okay, somebody else is here, and he'll hopefully flee or leave or something. Is that what Michael said during that body-worn video walkthrough, the first one at the crime scene?
Yes.
I have nothing further on.
Any redirect? Recross?
I believe that based on the questioning by Mr. Aguilar, I should be able to play the clip now from the station interview.
Which one? Is this third time you're asking for that same clip?
No, this is Mr. Herman at the station being interviewed.
How long is that?
Just like, I think under 20 seconds.
Go ahead.
I'd like to mark this as defense next in order.
Triple V. Is that a CD?
Yes, it's a CD, and then I'd like to...
The transcript is number 1. All right. You can just hand me one here, Counsel. Thank you.
I didn't know it wasn't.
So do you recognize this, Detective?
Yes,
And this is the interview with Michael Herman on the 15th of February back at the station, right?
at Hollywood Station.
I apologize, Your Honor, it's not under 20 seconds. It is very short.
Go ahead.
Can you remember? Still hear screaming?
I still heard screaming.
Still hear screaming. Now, and when we were at the house, you
Because when I was yelling, because when I was leaving, I yelled up there, "Hey, motherfucker!" like really loud, because I wanted her to think I was coming upstairs, so maybe he'd like stop and run. You know,
even know that he's not in the house, but one of two of them.
Right. And I didn't know if it was like, I didn't know if it was multiple people. I just didn't know, and I just hoped that would that they would make the person flee.
Right. And besides besides hearing her screaming, what else did you hear?
That's all I remember hearing.
Well, didn't you mentioned to me that you heard like
Oh, well, yeah, it was shuffling.
Yeah.
From up above the person. Yeah. It sounded like that wasn't when I was like running out. That was when I was yelling at Amie. That was when it felt like I heard like shuffling.
Okay. Did you hear?
Because when I ran out, like I just yelled, "Hey, motherfucker!" and then ran out.
So you see Amie and you hear the shuffling.
Yeah.
And then you go into the room, you come back out of the room, she's still screaming,
Yeah.
and then you yell back up again, and then you exit through the back door. Besides the shuffling, her screaming, do you remember, did you hear anything else like banging or clanking or
No, that was all
things
I heard.
falling down? Okay.
On redirect, you testified that you called Aspen Jameson just to introduce yourself and set up the interview, right?
Well, I said I called her.
Well, withdrawn.
I called her to determine if she was the person that we were looking for to talk to. I asked her some brief preliminary type questions to make sure she had information, knew what we were talking about, and then set up an interview.
And so it's your testimony here today that you did not ask Aspen Jameson whether she heard Gareth Pursehouse say, "You ruined my life, bitch," in that phone call. You never asked that question.
No, that you got into in your first cross. I thought that we made an issue of it.
Right. You didn't ask that question.
No.
And prior to your testimony, the preliminary hearing, you thoroughly reviewed Mr. Hernando Chavez's interview, right?
I reviewed it, yes.
And you testified that he did not tell you that he personally heard Gareth Pursehouse say, "You ruined my life, bitch."
Checks and asked and answers.
Sustained.
This was raised in redirect.
It doesn't matter, Counsel, that you asked that question.
Nothing for that.
Anything?
No.
You get to go home.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip to Tennessee. You want to wait till 1:30 or you?
We can wait until 1:30.
Let's come back at 1:30, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good lunch if you will, all right? Thank you. In this matter, people, you may call your next witness.
The people call Mr. Jorge Posada.
All right? All right, so if you could approach the witness, stand down here, please. Before you sit down, if you could raise your right hand, face my foot.
You solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Please state and spell both your first and last name.
Yes, my name is Jorge Posada, Jorge Posada.
All right, people.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a senior criminalist at the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner
And how long have you been a senior criminalist?
since September of 2017.
And what are your duties as a senior criminalist for the LA County Coroner's Office?
My primary duties are postmortem toxicology, and I also do evidence collection.
And what is your education, background, and experience that qualifies you to be a senior criminalist?
I have a Bachelor of Science from the University of California, San Diego in animal physiology and neuroscience. And the majority of our experience is on-the-job training, which I had at the coroner's office as a coroner investigator prior to being a senior criminalist, and also on-the-job training as a criminalist.
Now, you indicated that one of your job duties was to collect biological samples. About how many times would you say you've done that as a criminalist?
Do you want to clarify which biological samples?
From the decedent's body upon intake?
Yeah, it's the preservation and collection of evidence. Prior to being a criminalist, I was a coroner investigator, and we collected evidence on all homicides, accidents, and undetermined deaths. And now, as a criminalist, only on very specific cases.
So, in all of your experience, how many times would you say you've collected evidence?
Hundreds.
Now, on February 15th of 2020 at around 3:50 in the afternoon, did you observe an evidence collection of a decedent conducted by another criminalist by the name of Michael Schudart with the coroner case number of 2020-01406?
Yes.
I'm showing you a photograph that's previously been marked as People's 30. Is this the decedent in which you observed that evidence was collected from?
Yes.
Now, you observed that this evidence was collected by somebody by the name of Michael Schudart. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And who is that?
He was a senior criminalist in our office at the time.
And where is he now?
He is retired.
And do you know when it is that he retired?
In 2020.
Now, where did this evidence collection take place?
At the Forensic Science Center, shorthanded to the FSC, which is at our office.
And why were you observing?
I was a trainee at the time.
Were you present during the entirety of the evidence collection?
Yes, I was.
Since then, have you actually conducted your own evidence collection of decedents?
Yes, I've been signed off. I'm no longer a trainee. I've been signed off and have collected evidence on my own.
Can you explain the process followed in collecting evidence from this decedent?
Well, it's very case dependent, but in this one, I believe there was a request for a sexual assault kit to be collected, and that was what was performed at our office.
Can you explain the process in which that sort of sexual assault evidence collection is conducted?
Yeah, it involves a series of internal and external swabs on the decedent's body.
Would you say that Mr. Schudart followed the same procedures and protocols that you do when collecting such a series of evidence collections?
Objection calls for a compound answer given the number of swabs that were done in this case.
Well, if this witness observed the collection, did you observe all the collections?
Yes, I did.
Of this individual?
Yes.
And were they in accordance with how you collect samples?
Yes.
Okay, I'll allow it.
I believe he answered the question with the court's inquiry.
All right.
Prior to collecting any evidence, was there a general physical exam conducted of the decedent?
That's the initial step. You do an overall examination of the decedent to determine your course of action.
Your Honor, there's a photograph that's been left up.
Okay.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
You were saying? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the first step is to kind of get an overall picture of the decedent to determine a course of action of your evidence collection.
Was an alternate light source used?
Yes, it was.
And what is an alternate light source?
An alternate light source is a light source of a different wavelength used to determine if there are any biological stains on the decedent or on clothing, etc.
Were there any observations you made as a result of that general physical exam of the body?
It was unremarkable.
And what does unremarkable mean?
Nothing was seen underneath the alternate light source.
After conducting the general physical exam of the decedent, what did Mr. Schudart then do next?
He started the evidence collection.
So what's the purpose of collecting evidence from a decedent's body?
It's to collect and preserve evidence for the law enforcement agency if they want to test it or not.
What areas of the body were biological samples taken?
There were swabs taken from all over the decedent's body, from her face, her neck, her breast, and there was also a variety of internal swabs taken as well.
So let's talk about the actual sexual assault evidence kit that was collected. Was there a swab conducted or collected from the oral cavity?
Yes.
From the neck?
Yes, there was actually 2 swabs taken from the neck, one from the left side and one from the right side.
The left breast?
Yes.
The right breast?
Yes.
The external genital?
Yes.
The vaginal cavity?
Yes.
The cervical?
I believe there was an attempt for a cervical swab.
What do you mean by that?
Sometimes the cervix is not visualized, so I believe he wrote in the notes that it was an attempt.
We object to that is calling for hearsay.
Well,
Reading from the notes.
well, you said you believe it was an attempt. Are you answering that question based on reviewing the notes of that individual, or did you yourself see it was an attempt?
No, I reviewed the notes from the case.
Okay, I'm going to sustain it.
Based on your
So stricken.
based on your observation, did you see a cervical swab taken?
I do not recall.
Now, in addition, was there a anal opening swab
Yes.
and a rectal swab?
Yes.
What about pubic hair combing?
There was not a pubic hair combing kit performed.
And why is that?
There was no pubic hair.
Were there any swabs taken of any actual objects?
There was swabs of a vaginal piercing that were taken.
Were there other body swabs aside from what I named in the sexual assault kit that were taken?
Yeah, there were swabs of the hands and swabs of the face as well.
Was there a swab of the knuckles of the left hand?
Yes.
Knuckles of the right hand?
Yes.
Was there any taken from any stains on the right breast?
There was the swab taken from an apparent blood stain on the breast.
Was this the right breast?
Yes.
Was there one taken of the left breast?
Yes.
And you said there were face swabs as well?
Yes.
How many?
I don't recall the number.
But there was a face swab taken.
Yes.
What about fingernails? Was there a fingernail kit taken?
There was fingernail swabs taken because the decedent had acrylic nails in place.
So can you explain how that takes place?
Yeah, normally part of the evidence collection is a nail clipping or a fingernail kit where we take nail clippings. However, if the decedent has acrylic nails or if the nails are too short, you have the option of doing a wet swab of the nails.
And was that what was done in this instance?
Yes.
And that was of the left as well as the right?
Yes.
Now, why did Mr. Shootart, if you know, swab the jewelry pieces or the piercing that you observed?
I do not know why he swabbed it.
Is that something that you would typically do if you found such a piercing?
We would remove it if it was in place, but since it was removed prior to our involvement, it would just get booked as physical evidence.
Is collecting body swabs outside of the sexual assault evidence kit that we just discussed part of standard procedures in evidence collection?
It is case dependent, but yes, extra swabs are taken often.
Were there other items of evidence that were collected from this particular decedent?
There was a red underwear and a hair kit that was collected as well.
What's a hair kit?
A hair kit is just a reference kit of hair samples from a variety of areas of the decedent's body.
Now, what was done with the biological samples or the evidence once it was collected?
Once they're collected, they are set out to dry in one of our fume hoods and then eventually packaged a few days later.
And when they're packaged, are they labeled with the specific coroner number?
Yes, they're labeled with the coroner case number.
And in this instance, it's 2020-01406. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's what's done in following the coroner's office's standard procedures and protocols?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What did you review in preparation for your testimony today?
The criminalist report for this case?
Just the report?
Yes.
Did you review any handwritten notes?
There are notes that are included in the report.
Do you have what you reviewed with you today?
Yes, I do.
May I see? Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes. Let me make sure I have all the pages here. And then it's the report and notes and then other forms that are included in the evidence.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did you review a preliminary hearing transcript in your preparation for testifying today?
I did review it.
And you said you were a trainee in 2020 when the evidence collection was done by criminalist Schubert, right?
Correct.
And prior to you and investigator Schubert, am I pronouncing his name correctly?
Schukart?
Schukart.
Yeah.
Prior to you and investigator Schukart receiving the decedent, a body piercing had been removed by another criminalist?
It was removed by a forensic attendant. So they're involved with the transporting of the decedent.
Okay. And was that something that was not supposed to be done?
That was not supposed to happen, no.
All right. So prior to the piece of jewelry being swabbed, it had already been removed by this other attendant?
Correct.
And I'm talking about the vaginal piercing jewelry?
Yes.
Thank you. When you received the decedent's body, did you find that the decedent had a lot of signs of surgery, that she'd been treated medically prior to her arrival at your department?
Objection, improper opinion.
You can ask about scars or whatever, but where they came from is another thing.
I'll show you People's 30. Is this how Ms. Harwick's body was received by you?
Yes.
And did it look to you like she had received medical treatment?
Yes.
And did it look to you like she had received surgery?
Improper foundation.
I don't know. Are you able to tell?
I am not, no.
Okay, sustain.
Did you see that she had catheters in her body?
Yes.
And did you see that she also had breathing apparatus connected to her?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to see when her body was turned?
Yes.
And did you then discover that there was underwear in place underneath her body?
Yes.
And you collected or you observed criminalist Schukart? Schukart.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get that. Schukart collect the underwear?
Correct.
And this was red underwear?
Yes, it was.
And what did he do with it when he removed it?
It is placed onto clean butcher paper to be packaged later.
And why is it put on butcher paper?
To help with the drying down of the clothing.
So anytime any item of clothing is collected, is it placed on butcher paper to dry?
Usually, yes.
And then you scanned both the front and back of Ms. Harwick's body with this alternative light source.
Correct.
And observed nothing remarkable.
Correct.
And then you, after that, collected the sexual assault kit.
Yes.
Is that standard in every case of a homicide investigation?
The order in which the evidence collection might change, but it is standard evidence collection.
Was there any type of collection done in this case that was not typical?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Were any places, were any parts of the body pointed out to you by anybody other than investigator Schuchart?
No.
Were you the only other person observing this collection?
I don't recall, but it was me and Mark that were handling the evidence collection for the case.
And you had said that the knuckles of each hand were swabbed?
That's correct.
And those were the proximal phalanges, middle phalanges of each hand?
Yeah, it was the back of the hands and the back of the fingers.
And the upper face was also swabbed?
Correct.
That was the forehead, between the brows and the hairline?
Yes.
And was the neck area swabbed?
Yes, it was.
And then the fingernail kit. You said that the fingernails were acrylic, and therefore they were not clipped, but they were swabbed.
Correct.
How many swabs were taken for each hand?
It's one individual swab for each hand.
And when criminalist Schuchart swabbed the fingernails, did he swab the tips of each fingernail on each hand?
Correct.
And do you recall that the fingernails were all in very good condition?
I don't recall the condition of the nails.
Would it refresh your recollection to review your report?
Yes.
Would you please do so?
Okay.
Great. So you had an opportunity to refresh your recollection?
Yes.
And do you recall now that the fingernails were in very good condition?
Correct.
And then one other question about the nails. Do you recall that a whitish scrape or smear, barely noticeable, was on L2?
I can look at my, can I
Please.
look at my notes? Or Mark's notes, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
And so that whitish scrape or smear was barely noticeable on L2?
Correct.
And what is L2?
It's the second finger
On which hand?
on the left hand.
Okay. So it would be my pointer finger or my middle finger?
The ring finger.
From the ring finger,
Yeah.
okay. And do you know if that whitish smear or scrape was swabbed?
The entire acrylic nail is swabbed with the swab as part of the nail kit. So yes, it was swabbed.
So the tips of the nail was swabbed.
Yes, underneath from the nail bed to the tip of the acrylic nail, that is what was swabbed.
Okay. And do you know if the scrape or smear was on the outside of the fingernail?
I don't recall.
So you don't know if it was inside or outside
No.
the nail? All right. Looking at the collection of fingernail evidence protocol for the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner Coroner. Doesn't the protocol require that if fingernails are synthetic, swabbings must be collected in addition to clippings?
I believe it does say that in the manual, yes.
And acrylic nails are synthetic nails, correct?
Correct.
But that was not done in this case.
No, it was not.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Read right. May step down. Thank you. Very next witness.
The people called Nick Sanchez.
All right.
Call another witness, Detective Samuel Marullo.
Okay, Detective, you get posted with the stand, please. Raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending before this court should be the truth of the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Please state and spell both your first and last name.
Samuel, Samuel, Marullo, Marullo.
All right, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you. Please tell the jury what is your occupation and your current assignment.
I am a detective employed by the City of Los Angeles, currently assigned to West Bureau Homicide.
How many years have you been a police officer?
November will be 27 years.
How many years have you been a detective?
Been a homicide investigator for nearly 16 years.
Thank you. Now, on February 15, 2020, were you assisting detectives in the investigation of the death of Amie Harwick?
Yes, sir.
And was one of your duties to take photographs of a defendant, of a suspect, Gareth Pursehouse?
To ensure that photographs were taken of him, yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. I personally wasn't going to take them.
But you were there when the photographs were taken?
Yes, sir.
And was this done on February 16th, 2020 at around 30 minutes past midnight?
Yes, sir.
And where was this done?
At Piper Tech. It's a LAPD facility on Ramirez Street.
This is a technical investigation department?
They're located there amongst other entities.
Here in downtown Los Angeles?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you see Gareth Pursehouse here in court today?
Yes, I do.
Can you please point out where he's situated and what he's wearing today?
He's seated to the left of defense counsel, the gentleman, and he's wearing glasses and a brown sport jacket.
Identify the defendant.
And so you mentioned that you did not take the photographs, but someone else was taking photographs.
A TID photographer.
And can you tell the jury what does TID stand for?
It's Technical Investigation Division, and photography unit falls under that entity.
And are you directing the photographer to take photographs of certain parts of Mr. Pursehouse's body?
Yes, sir.
Looking here at people's next in order, it's a two-page exhibit, two photographs.
109.
109, thank you. Looking at 109, you see that there?
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Okay. I'm going to zoom in, and who is that?
Mr. Pursehouse.
That's how it appeared on February 16, 2020, just a little bit past midnight.
Yes, sir.
Zoom in.
More of the trial of the Hollywood sex therapist killer is on the way. Press subscribe now so you don't miss a moment of this riveting courtroom drama as we seek justice for Dr. Amie Harwick.